All right, everybody, welcome back to Madhouse Unfiltered, presented by MJ Printing and Graphics. My name is Eric Messer. This is episode 6, and this week I'm excited to sit down here with the Showstopper, Chris Fleming here. Before we get started here, I just want to thank MJ Printing and Graphics for their presenting sponsorship. Since 1983, they have been specializing in custom screen printing and vinyl graphics, so just let them bring your visions to life. Visit mjcustomprinting.com today to learn how they can help you. So, how you doing, Chris Fleming?
I'm doing great.
Good.
We're in the race shop, and this is where I spend a lot of my time.
Right. So, just starting how we always start here. So just tell me about your starting race and how'd you get started?
I was in high school, and one of my friends raced go-karts. And Frank and I were from a racing background. Our father raced motorcycles, and he was a daredevil. Whatever he was in, no matter where he went, he was wide open. He used to climb radio towers without a belt. I've seen him flat track motorcycles, with I've seen him outrun them, Harley Davidsons on a Honda with headlights on it. And I started racing go-karts 45 years ago. And started doing that in high school, and you can see what's happened the last 45 years. It's been a blast.
Right. So tell me about do you remember your first time ever behind the wheel of a race car?
A race car or a go-kart?
Let's go full body, like a full body race car.
Yeah, I can. It was at 311 Speedway. You know, contrary to what a lot of people believe, me and Frank come up pretty hard. Our daddy had a nervous breakdown when we was young, and Mama worked in a mill, and things didn't come easy. She raised 3 of us kids and made $181 a week. How she did that, I do not know. But we always had to invent ways to race. So I bought a car that was wrecked. Daddy did. I think we give like $700 for it. It was a Clydesdale car. And we brought the thing home, put it on the frame machine, and straightened it. And that's when my career started on dirt, which lasted for about 10 years. Okay. And then also your brother Frank, you talk about your brother Frank too. He got pretty successful into racing as well. He went up. How far did he go up the NASCAR ladder? Well, Frank run all the way to Busch Grand National. Matter of fact, I've long said this. Frank walked into Daytona Speedway and got in a Busch Grand National car and qualified in the top 10. And he left Bowman Gray Stadium before he went there. I've long said this, that you can take somebody from Bowman Gray and carry them to Daytona, and they'll be a contender. But you can bring somebody from Daytona and bring them to Bowman Gray, and they may not be able to keep up.
That's right. So diving into Bowman Gray a little bit, so when did Bowman Gray come into the picture for you and Frank?
Frank was racing down there in the early 90s. He started running modifieds in the 80s and very successful. Drove for some of the top car owners in this part of the country. Speedy Thomas, Jim Wilson, Ted Inman, and Frank always, when he showed up, he was going to be a contender. Right. And that was in the 80s, and I was still running dirt at that time. So about 92, I had just about won the championship at 311, ended up second in points there. And I decided I wanted to run modifieds with Frank, try to get our family back together, because one of us is at the dirt track, the other one's at the paved track. So I wound up driving a car for Bob Nelson. Right. Started in 92, and his son Gary helped me as late as last year. So Bob and I run modifieds there for several years before I got hooked up with Todd Hunt.
Okay. And How soon did you find success with Bob Nelson?
You know, Bowman Gray's warfare. You know, it's warfare, and I kind of got thrown in a war, and I didn't know what I was doing. I think we run pretty decent, but you know, we had more success on the bigger tracks. I never did win, but I run third on the Southern Modified Tour a couple of times, and we was contenders for many races in the top 5, but never did really find the winner's circle. Either Bowman Gray or on the Smart Tour. But again, we was contenders, just never did get to where we could win.
Right. And do you remember your first win?
You know, I don't remember my first win. That's hard to believe. I don't even know how many times I won at Bowman Gray Stadium. I think I've won 14 or 16 times.
Yeah, I got some stats from Justin Mincy. You won 17 times.
17
in
times.
345 starts.
Yeah. Those statistics ain't too good. I will say this: we've been a contender in a bunch of them 300.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, and that's a good segue into my next. We're going to talk about some of your stats. So you have 345 starts, 17 wins, but you have 115 top 5s and 216 top 10s. So you talk about being a contender. Those stats, I mean, it might not be winning, but you can point them to death.
Right.
You know. So, and he also mentioned that you have 4 consecutive winning seasons from 2019 to now, and that's only been accomplished by 12 drivers in Bowman Gray history.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
12. Those are Tim Brown, Burt Myers, Junior Miller, Paul Radford, Johnny Bryant, Satch Worley, Ralph Brinkley, Glenn Wood, Curtis Turner, Gary Myers, and Jason Myers.
Wow.
So, so you have the stout resume, but you're still kind of chasing that elusive championship.
Well, you know, until recently, I raced at Bowman Gray Stadium from 92 until probably 2010, when I had less than a stellar car.
Yeah.
That's what I've said about Jordan, about what's been so impressive about Jordan this year. Jordan's just got a race car. He's got a less than $20,000 race car, and you know, if I sold this car right now, which is not mine to sell, but if I wanted to sell it, it would be near $100,000.
Right.
And you know, but I raced at Bowman Gray Stadium for years with stuff that other people had discarded, or you know, just less than stellar cars.
Right.
And Todd Hunt's helped me a lot, and Todd's given me a car, pretty well give it to me. And of course, Krav Smith come to us about 10 years ago, and he wanted to race, and he said, buy me a winning car, and you let me drive it. When I don't drive it, y'all can run. And that's probably what the fuel what threw the fuel in the fire.
Yep.
So since that time, you know, we've been a constant contender.
So at what point did you get up with Todd Hunt?
Todd and I, my niece got married, and Todd was from Mount Airy.
Yep.
You know, he owns Jerry Hunt Supercenter in Lexington now, but he lived in Mount Airy. My niece got married, and his daughter was in my niece's wedding. And we'd always rooted for Todd at Bowman Gray. He was there racing. I don't even know how many races Todd's won there in championships, and his son. But we met when she got married, and we've hit it off. We've been to the Kentucky Derby a couple of times. We've been to Las Vegas. We've been going to Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge for over 20 years now. So Todd's been a huge instrumental part of Chris Fleming Racing, Frank Fleming Racing.
Awesome. So let's dive into last season a little bit, probably one of your more successful seasons. So you You won 3 or 4 races that season.
I think I won last season.
Last season, yeah.
I think we won 4 times.
4, I think.
3 or 4.
Somewhere around there. That's the one I didn't get from Justin.
Yeah, I think it was 4 times last year. You win one at Bowman Gray, now you won your share.
Right, that's right. And going into the halfway break, you were leading the points.
I was leading or close.
Yeah, somewhere around there. You were leading or close. You were pretty close with Tim Brown. The whole race was pretty close last year.
It was.
And you were contending until you started running into some bad luck in the last couple weeks.
3 weeks to go. We made a bad move and wound up in the wall, and that was the end to my points run. It was over then.
Right.
Destroyed a car, and had to start the next race in Crab's car, which is a winner itself, but had to start last, and you can't. It's hard to give up 50 points in one night. Especially against the competition we're racing against.
That's right. So how frustrating was that for you to see everything kind of slip away right at the end of the season?
I told the guys all year, I said, they're not going to let us win the championship. I knew it was coming. And probably should have drove smarter than what I drove, and got around the wrong person, wound up in the wall. And I still say it'll probably happen this year. I don't go to sleep thinking about the championship, and I don't wake up thinking about the championship. What I do concentrate on is winning races. And you got to realize that I'm working 60 to 70 hours a week before me and Rudy Peel ever walk in this race shop at night. And that's at, I leave the house most mornings at 6:30 or 7, get home at 6:30, and that's before we ever touch a race car. And some weeks, we're bringing 3 race cars to the racetrack, and all 3 of them are winners.
That's right. So, before we dive into let's go ahead and dive into this season. So, did last season's success and then the decline at the end, has that influenced your outlook on this season at all?
Again, when I pull in the racetrack, you can look at me as a driver and say, he's not here to run second. There's done 2 races this year. I could have fell in line and run second or third. You see me get my car wiped out 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, when all I had to do was fall in line. I'd have probably been about the points leader, but I don't think about them. I was there, Rudy stays in this shop with me, and I owe it to him to try to win the race. I will tell you, after I done that, he told me he wished I'd have gotten in line because it took us all week to rebuild the car. But last week I could have fell in line, probably run third. It don't interest me one bit. If I was going to go down there to run third or fourth, I just well stay at home. I'm not interested in doing that at all. When I show up, I'm going to try to win. If it's going to the outside when it makes you cover your head up, that's who Chris Fleming is.
Right. And so far this season, we're at the halfway point.
We are
at this season. So Burt Myers is kind of running away with it at this point, but you're second in line behind him. In mind, you're about 40 some odd points behind him.
Yep.
But should misfortune come his way, do you think you would buckle down and take those good runs in order to make a run for the championship if the opportunity came?
I'm not going to give him the championship, and I'm not going to do anything stupid to lose it. If we had my finish back when I was fighting him for the lead the other week when I got stuffed in the wall, if you give me that finish back, this would be a whole different scenario than what it is right now.
Right.
We would be right with him, and but it happened.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about your family here. So Jordan's racing this year. He's had a great start to this season. and your son Luke, he's also had success at the stadium. What's it been like for you to see your sons follow in your footsteps and have that success?
I've really felt better about what Jordan has done this year than what I've done my own self. Jordan's, we call him Jordan, the best Fleming yet. That is Luke's car. Luke bought the car. Most of the recent focus has been on Luke. We spent a few years working with him. He won NASCAR Rookie of the Year. He won a tour race.
Right.
And he was a contender on the Southern Modified Tour. And he decided to walk away. And, I applaud Luke for giving his brother the chance that he's had. Went and bought this car. They worked all winter on it, rebuilt it. And they actually run a couple races in it last year. Didn't rebuild a motor. The car had been sitting in a container for several years. Some people say 8 or 10 years, been sitting in a container. So they took the car and rebuilt it, and there's been nights I couldn't run with it. So very proud of what they've done, and I like, me and Frank's tight.
Yeah.
If me and Frank ever get killed together in a car wreck, in an airplane crash, they're never going to be able to separate what he and I's got together, because we call everything iron. If you say, whose is that? We say it's iron. That race car, that's my motor. He owns half the car. Yep. So it's iron. And, this shop is full of parts, tire racks. We bought a race team out, got the tire rack. Motors, carburetors, there'd be no way to separate it.
Yeah.
And, again, watching my boys as together like me and Frank's done, and we never get mad. We laugh and aggravate each other every once in a while, but we never get mad at each other.
Right. Is there a certain special moment that you look back on with your boys racing that you're especially proud of?
Well, there's no doubt Luke winning the tour race at Bowman Gray. The whole deal was kind of funny. He drove my car. I drove it the night before. That's when they run, can't remember, was it a 50 lapper one night, or I can't remember, 150 lapper or something. And then the tour race was the next night. Well, I run third in it the night before, and then Luke got in the car. We didn't even turn a coilover adjustment screw in it. I took Bowman Gray tires and put tour tires on it. Never screwed one screw on the car. And he put on a clinic that night. I mean, that thing, that's probably, that's the car where the Showstopper name come from. I actually named that car the Showstopper.
Right.
And of course, it kind of trickled over, and we just laugh about that. It means nothing to me.
All right, cool. So, and we talked about it a little bit before we started talking here, but you're a very outspoken man of faith. How has your faith guided you throughout your motorsports career?
Well, I wasted a lot of my time doing it all wrong. I run into a man that woke me up. His name is Rusty Reed. I've always been in church. I was raised in church. I was raised Pentecostal holiness. And there's one thing we did at our house. You're going to church. If you're going to do anything, you're going to church. And, so I don't know it any other way. But I always didn't do it right. And I had a pastor walk into our church, and he spoke on my level, and he woke me up, and I realized what a train wreck I was. And I realized I didn't want to be like that anymore. Even though I still fail daily. I now see my failures, and I say, I don't want to be like that anymore. And, the old man's still there. The old Chris is still there. through the grace and mercies, not only mercy, but mercies of Jesus Christ, I've been able to overcome some of the things in the past that I couldn't overcome.
Mm-hmm. So, before we start kind of wrapping it up here, so you mentioned you've been racing for the better part of 45 years?
45, this is my 45th season.
Right.
I actually been racing longer than Frank. Yeah.
That's right.
I was racing go-karts before he was,
Right.
before he started running cars.
Right.
And I will say it's hard living in the shadows of a legend.
Mm-hmm.
And, Frank was no doubt one of the greatest race car drivers of all time. Mm-hmm. And he won at one point, I think, 3 weeks in 3 different cars at Bowman Gray.
Wow.
3 different cars, 3 different car owners maybe at Bowman Gray Stadium. That's, he was always unbelievable behind the wheel. And his balance is second to none. He's, he had a terrible wreck in 1986. Mm-hmm. And I remember being at the hospital, and Frank really should have died. He had a blood clot on his brain, or maybe more than one. But the doctor said if he lives, he won't never race again. My mother looked at the doctor and she said, "You don't know my son." So 6 months later, he went back to the same racetrack he almost got killed at and sat on pole. He never lost his balance. He had slurred speech, mm-hmm. some other problems, but he never lost his balance. And, driving race cars, you got to have a good balance. And that's what I think always made Frank so good.
Right. And he still picks it up from time to time today, right?
Frank is going to win again. Wait and see. He will win in 5 decades. As you can see over here, the people watching can't see, but we've got him in a semi-new car done. Phil Stefanelli at PSR just clipped his car, redone all the back end, put a new body on it, mm-hmm. and Frank will win again. And it may be this year, and it may be at Bowman Gray Stadium. I can tell you this, we're putting his car together now, and it's got the Bowman Gray rear end in it. So there's a good chance he will win this year.
That's awesome. So going back kind of in the direction I was going in, so like I say, you've been racing for the better part of 45 years. Has the thought ever crossed your mind as you get older to hang it up and then focus on your kids or focus on something else? Or
Well, we did that with Luke. I quit driving for a couple years. I only run just selected races. Mm-hmm. And Luke, he wasn't happy. Our cars, they wouldn't, they needed some help. And we found out what our problem was. We had been running shocks that we thought was good shocks, but they was bad shocks. Frank and I went to the PRI show in Indiana. We bought a shock machine. Mm-hmm. And we got the shock company to come dyno our shocks, and nothing was what it was supposed to be. Yeah. And that kind of put our racing back on the map. We met Tim Godshall with Bill Steen, or Bill Stein, are you from the north or the south? And, he started building our shocks, and he put us back on the map. Right. So you can see all our cars now has got that shock on it, mm-hmm. and you can see that shock machine over there. It's the best $15,000 I ever spent. I didn't realize what was even wrong with the program. You buy a shock, and you look on it, it says it's a 5.6, mm-hmm. Adjustment, and you put it on a shock machine, and it was a 4.8.
Oh, wow.
So they was that bad. And after we realized we had a problem there and got our shock straightened out, we've been contenders ever since.
That's good. So one last question here before we wrap it up here. So do you have, with your career, I know you kind of mentioned that Luke, you look back on Luke's career and everything, but is there a moment in your career that you go back and look on as one of your favorite memories at the racetrack?
Well, I've had so many good times at the racetrack. I sit sometimes and just look at the pictures of the wins. Our spotlight was definitely actually when either Frank or Luke was driving the car. Again, that don't take, and Jordan. Jordan's won at Bowman Gray Stadium too in 2 different divisions.
Right.
And so is Luke. And just to spotlight any one thing is almost when my kids outrun me. When Jordan went by me the other night, and I'm like, that was impressive. So it's more about them than it is me. At this point, really, if it was up to me, they could be driving the cars right now. But it's hard to fund these things, and I'm well funded. You've got to provide a service for your sponsors, and when you provide a service for your sponsors, they'll help you. And I think I've been able to do that. Especially the last 15 years. All the sponsors on my car, anybody that comes with me is pretty well stayed because I get their name out there. I know a lot of people, and I provide. They get money back for what they spend, more than what they spent.
All right, well, I just want to thank you again for coming back on here. I'll give you this opportunity here to thank anybody you need to thank for our sponsors, family, whoever you need to.
Well, I'm loaded with sponsors, so I got to read them off. But Taylor Auto Parts has been with us for several years now. Surrey Chemicals, Perkins and Associates, they're health insurance specialists. Hodges Realty's here in Mount Airy, great family friend of ours, and he's been with us now for 2 or 3 years. Guarantee Automotive Group, they're in Hillsville, Galax, and Whitfield, and they've got like a buy here, pay here car lot. Jerry Hunt Supercenter, Todd's one of my very best friends. He's like family to me, but carry his dad's name with pride, and I appreciate Todd and all he's done for us. Marvin's Garage Doors come on this year, and I think they're happy with everything they're doing. They called me today, and I appreciate them. Horizon Equipment Rentals, part of my family, and been a great sponsor for us and a friend, and thankful for them all, especially our family, my boys, my wife, my sister, for all she's done for me and Frank that's allowed us to race. Awesome.
Well, again, I appreciate you being on. So make sure you tune back in next week here. We'll be announcing our next guest here in the coming days. Be sure to like and subscribe for more. And thank you again to MJ Printing and Graphics in Kernersville for sponsoring the podcast here. And thank you again for being on.
Thank you, Eric, for what you're doing.
Yes, sir.